All right, so the Maya part is exactly the same whether you're doing it in Photoshop or Nuke, okay, if you can do any compositing. These are all the things I did to this specific one inside of Photoshop. So I did a background, I did the ambient occlusion, I added some gradation stuff, and so on, okay? Now, if I were to open up another rendering that I did, I have to redo all this stuff, okay? Basically from the beginning. Like I'd have to put the layers here, reset that to multiply, re-add all of these things in there, all my masks, everything. With Nuke, you do it once and it's set up. All you're doing is changing that top node, which you'll see, and then everything else in that group will change. It's pretty awesome. So on these computers, you have Nuke. On your home computer, I showed, or I mentioned how you can install it on that Make at Macomb website. It shows you how to install it. The license is on your first day handout. There's several versions of Nuke, even within your installer. The one that we use is Nuke X 11.3 version 4. Okay, not the non-commercial one, not regular Nuke. You'll see all the different Nuke studios and whatever else that come up. You want Nuke X. Even if we're on 11.3.4 here, 11.3.2 at home would open here, and this one would open in 2. Typically, there's not an issue going back and forth between the different versions. And usually Nuke will open. So it's the same thing. For whatever reason, my computer wasn't opening the college's license. I had to reroute it, go somewhere else. It doesn't matter. So the interface is very minimalistic. That's in its intent. The top area right here where my mouse is, this is your work area, or your viewer. So think of After Effects or think of Premiere. This is what's actually on the screen. Over here on the right is your properties, and then down here is the node graph. Most of the work that is confusing is down here. Everything else is pretty much, you've seen it before. Hotkeys are sensitive to where your mouse is. So if my mouse is here, a hotkey will do one thing. If it's down here, it'll do something different. So just pay attention to that. I'm first going to hit S. Oops, see, I did it the wrong way. I'm going to hit S down here. And I'm going to change this to the format that I'm going to be working. So I know that my rendering is 1920 by 1080, so I'm going to tell it that it's 1920 by 1080. Then I'm going to bring my footage in. You can do this 15 different ways, maybe 14. If I go and grab one of my images, I can just drag it in. That's an easy way to do it. I have to make sure I grab one that's actually there. Is that there? Oh. Let me close this out. Nuke does not like to fight with renderers, so it won't. It just says, nope, I'm done. There it is. Okay. So here is that piece of footage. Okay. The other way to bring it in is if I were to keep my mouse down here and hit R, then I can go ahead and find that piece of footage and bring it in. So if I had a sequence or I had an animation that I wanted to bring in, that's how I would do it through that. Now, this is the piece of footage that I want to look at. This is the still image. This is the viewer. This is what the viewer is looking at here, or this is what we're seeing through the viewer. Right now, these two are not connected. I could have 20 different nodes. None of them are connected to the viewer, so it doesn't know what to show. So I'm going to click on this and hit 1. That will connect this image through the viewer, and then I can see that picture. Okay? Everything is what's called node-based. This is a node, this is a node. So the way these work is that I connect different nodes together, and that's what makes this thing work. So think of Maya. I have a cube, and then I added an extrude node. Then I added another extrude node. Then I added a bevel node. Then I added an extrude node. Each one of those in Maya's world is an actual node. It's just not on the interface for us to see. Here, it's on the interface. Okay? So I'm going to go up here, and this is where I can see what the layers look like. So if I go to alpha, there's my alpha channel. If I go to AO, there's the ambient occlusion. Okay? So this allows me to see what these things look like ahead of time. This specific file only has AO, alpha, and RGB. Those are the only three that it has. So I'm going to shuffle out, which means extract, okay, each one of these. When I did Photoshop, I opened up the file, it automatically extracted the ambient occlusion from the red, green, blue channel and the alpha channel. So I'm going to click on this, I'm going to hit the tab key, and you can type in any command, okay? So if I type in shuffle, that's the first one on this list, it adds a shuffle node. Okay, so now my viewer automatically connected to the shuffle node, so that means that I'm viewing the shuffle node. If I come over here and I change this to AO, now I've basically taken that original image, extracted the ambient occlusion, and that's what I'm looking at. Okay, so that's the ambient occlusion. I'm going to label this ambient occlusion. There we go. Now in Photoshop, and I'm going to jump back and forth to compare it, I took my ambient occlusion and I multiplied it on top of the color here, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to click off, don't hit anything, hit tab, and then I'm going to add a multiply. You'll see there's several here. There's a pre-mult, that's not it. There's a multiply math and a multiply merges. Either one of those should be the same thing, okay? So I'm going to go to multiply, that's the wrong one. So the math one is not the right one. I thought it was. I'm going to go to multiply merges. That's the right one. I should see an A and a B, okay? And this is, A is just on top and B is on the bottom. So the top, just like Photoshop, was ambient occlusion. So I'm dragging this arrow here. And the bottom was the color. I'm dragging that there. And then I'm going to click on this. You'll see the ambient occlusion is being viewed. We don't see the result. I'm going to click on the multiply and hit 1, and now I'm seeing the result of that. Okay? Now I'm seeing what it looks like when I take my color, the ambient occlusion, and the multiply and put those together. If I click on this and hit D, I can see a before and after of what it looks like with the ambient occlusion on, with the ambient occlusion off. It's basically just disabling. One of the cool things is you can go anywhere in this list. You could have a node graph that's this big, click on any node and view it exactly where it's at, or disable it and see what it looks like without it being enabled. Yes, ma'am?
My image is not showing
Any thumbnail? Okay, I'll have to look at that after then. Typically it should. All right, so there, that's merged, that's multiplied, good. So now I want to put this onto a different background. So now I'm going to click on this, and this is where I'm going to add a pre-mult. Okay? And when I do that, it basically takes this image and extracts it from the background that it already had. So in Photoshop, if I were to look at just this layer, disable this layer mask, and I guess I'd have to fill that in with black there. Oops, turn that off. There you go. So if this is what the image looked like originally, the pre-mult extracts it so that it's all by itself, okay? Now I'm going to join this together with something else. So I'm going to come over here to the side. I'm going to make a constant. A constant is basically just like a flat color. That's all it is, a constant color. I click on, this color swatch. I can pick the color I want. So just for obviousness stuff, we'll go with this weird color, then I'll change it after. I'm going to do another merge. So I can hit tab again, I can go to merge, oops. And then the A, which is the top, is going to be this, and the B, which is the bottom, will be this. And then I hit 1 on that merge, and now I can see what that looks like being merged on top of that background. Okay? Now again, this is one of the cool things about Nuke, is that if you were to look at just this graph, you can see here's the original item. I extracted the ambient occlusion, I multiplied it here, then I pre-multiplied to extract the alpha channel, or to extract the original color, then I merged it on top of this, and that's what we're viewing. Okay? If I'm in Photoshop, you have no idea what any of these layers are doing, right? You have an idea like, okay, there's a layer mask there, but what's on that layer mask? There's another layer mask here, what's on that layer mask? So we don't really know what any of these things are unless we actually click on them and see, oh, this is multiplied, it's not normal. okay? But here we can see pretty much everything. So I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to change this color. I want this to be a bit brighter like that. There we go. And this is not my high res. That's why it's all grainy still there. That's fine. And then I could do other stuff to this too, okay? So all the same stuff that I did here, I can do to this one. So I'm going to add a couple other things. So I'm going to add a Roto. This is how we're able to draw stuff inside here. And then I'm going to merge the Roto into that, okay? Notice how I was able to connect the A, and then as I drug the B over this line, it automatically knew to connect it. Okay, in Houdini, which is also a node graph based workflow, if you shake the node like crazy, it'll actually pop up. It's pretty fun. After like 2 or 3, it's fun. After that, it's like really boring. Like I just want it off there. All right, so I'm going to take this Roto, and I'm just going to draw a mask. This is the pen tool, so I'm going to go here, 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 and there. Okay, so now we basically have this big hole. I'm going to go down to the Roto settings. I'm going to invert it. I'm going to click on this and then pull this handle out. Now this is a feathering tool. So what this does is it feathers that edge. So instead of this being a harsh transition like we just had, now we have a softer transition. And if I go to, yeah, that should be good there. Good. This, I'm going to close all these windows. Every property from the first thing I opened up is still listed here. I'm just going to hit this X to close them all because I don't want them all. There we go. Okay, so let's pretend that this is it. That's all I wanted to do. I'm going to write this out. We'll get more in depth in this, different things you can do, but for right now I'm just going to leave it there. So I'm going to go add a write node, drop that in, and then I'm going to tell it where I want to put this file. So Sarcona, nuked, prop, and then I have to tell it what kind of file name. It doesn't know, like, if I were just to leave it as the name of it, it doesn't know what to save it as. So I have to tell it TIFF, JPEG, EXR, whatever it is. So I'm going to save this as a EXR, because that's what I brought it in as. And everything should be good here. I'm going to hit render right there, and then hit OK. Done. Okay, so now let's pretend that I have another image. I just did 15 images or 15 different props I want to do the same thing to. I go to the first node, I click here, I go and find my stuff. Whoops. Glass canister. There it is. All the stuff that I just did on the first one does it to the second one. So if I go to where the ambient occlusion is and I hit 1 there, that's the ambient occlusion. That's it multiplied. There's the pre-mult. There's the merge in the background. There's the Roto. And there's the nuke. And if I wanted to do it to a different one, I go to the first one, go here, grab the cubes, and now those have the same thing. So very quickly we can set this up. And typically what happens is when you get into industry and they're using Nuke as part of their pipeline, they'll just have the script ready to go. So you just bring your stuff in, it populates all the stuff correctly, and then you just go and adjust things. I don't like this color background, so I'm going to go here by double-clicking it, and then just adjust that background color. Actually, pretty good there. There we go. Okay. Now, like I said, we will get more into Nuke. There are certain things that Photoshop cannot do very good that Nuke can. So we will eventually get more into this. Now, think of this too, like if we were to do this still image, just like this in Photoshop, that's fine. But what if we had a sequence of images? Then we'd have to jump into probably After Effects and do it, where Nuke can do this all set up, right? Or we had a whole movie, Nuke can handle the movie, you know, pieces of the movie at a time, all at the same time. If we did something stereoscopic, so we have left and right camera, we'd want those settings to be exact so everything still matches up. Yes, ma'am. Experience. Okay. So as you're looking at, like let's say my node graph, you should be able to go into your Nuke, let's say, make, if this was still labeled shuffle, it would be more obvious, right? So if I label this shuffle, multiply, pre-mult, and you could connect the A's here, the B's there, and go straight down the line, and pretty much you would have the structure set up. It would just be a matter of creating the roto shape, picking the right ambient occlusion, and then picking the color you want. Correct. Pre-mult means basically you have a image with an alpha channel, and I want to extract the alpha channel from, or I want to extract the items from that channel. Multiply or merge, these are actually the same node. Let me switch back out so you can see. If I go here, here's the operation. Here's all the different stuff. There's multiply. If I go to this multiply, you'll see that these two look exactly the same, except this one's default chosen multiply, where the other one was default chosen over. Okay? So the more experience you have with Nuke, you'll know what nodes to use. If you don't know exactly, you can go through here. All of the specific nodes are listed in this area. Okay? Here's more stuff that I could do with this. So let's say that I wanted to add a glow to this. Oops. Glow. Okay, and again, I can just drop this in here, and it'll pick up right there. So this is glowing. What started to glow, though? Like the whole thing, right? I don't want that. I want mainly these blue areas to glow. So if I take the tolerance up, and then I take my brightness up, there we go, I take the size up. Ooh, actually, I like that white right there. That looks kind of cool. All right, I like that. Okay, or I can go into color correction. So this is my color correction area. So if I decided I wanted to adjust saturation, hue correct. Let's add that one in here. I'm going to go to my blue area, grab this, and slide it up. So now I'm just enhancing the levels of blue that are inside there. And what's cool too is that right now we're affecting the entire thing. Every node is basically like a flattened out version of that image, okay? Where in Photoshop, if I went here and I wanted to do a levels, I would have to go to the very top of this, add a levels, and then do that to the entire thing. But then if I wanted to do something on top of the levels, well then I'd have to actually merge everything and then do it, okay? Now we can also carry channels through this, and that's one of the huge benefits of Nuke. Let's say that I rendered this out, and I had just these blue pieces that I wanted to make glow. That's it. Right now with this glow, it doesn't let me do that. I can play with the tolerance all day long, but I'm still going to get the brightest parts of this as my glowing area. Let's see how well I can key this out, and we'll see if we can get this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit the wrong keys. I don't know what I hit there. Copy. No, that's not what I wanted. Get rid of that. Connect this. There we go. Okay. The hotkey for copy is K. I don't know why. Key light. There we go. So you'll see some of these have a lot more inputs. I'm going to go to this. I'm going to preview this. Actually, I'm going to pre-mult first. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to go to key light. And I'm going to pick this blue. Oops, RGBA. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my screen gain. Perfect. I think that's good. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically doing like a green screen operation just to be able to select these blue pieces. Okay, so think of Photoshop's color range or the magic wand. Now it's live. Now it's a node that I can always go back and edit and tweak at any point, and whatever I do with this, I always can go back and edit it. Okay? So all I did there was make an alpha channel that I'm then going to slide in way down here, and then I'm going to copy this into this area. And then I'm going to keep myself organized by moving stuff around. Noah can attest that organization is key in Nuke. to your success in being able to use it. I'm going to go and change this. Alpha channel here is going to be saved as a new channel, blue.mask. Yes. Okay, so here's my glow. And if we remember, it's glowing on the parts I don't want. It's glowing on the white and the blue. But now I've made a mask. I've made a selection, basically, of these blue pieces. And I can go in here and say, there's that mask. So I only want to glow there. I may have to invert this, and then, fine, invert. Alpha, there we go. And I go back to my glow, and then we can see that this is the only area that's glowing. The other parts aren't. Now if I bring in another piece, I go here, and go to this. I grab a glass canister. My key light is specific to that first one, so my settings for that need to be updated. So I'm going to jump back to key light and view it. It's way off. Blue is still there, so that's good. Bless you. So maybe like that should be good. We'll see. And then I go back to this, and now I have that area that's glowing right in the center. Okay? There's another plugin that eventually we use called Cryptomat, and Cryptomat allows me to export out pieces individually. So I could say, I want to automatically create a mask of the glass, or automatically create a mask of the cap of this. Think of when you, if we were to render out a car, 3D rendering. So something like this here. To get the blue that blue, sometimes you can't get it. Most of the time you can't get the exact color you want in rendering. So what we do is we render it out with masks, and then we go into Nuke and we adjust our coloring inside Nuke to get the blue that we want. And we'll even strip the stuff all the way down to the reflections so that the reflections, the shadows, the color, and all the individual pieces are separated, and we can put them all back together and tweak them at any point, okay? Because our goal is to make this as shiny and bright and as pleasant to look at as possible. Notice how the glow here is on the red of the tail light. That's not an accident. Notice how, well, they don't really have it in this one. Sometimes they'll have these like little glints where you see these like little highlights and you see this like little sparkly thing on there. That's a glint, and that is something that typically you'll see. It's kind of like a lens flare. There you go, like this. So the lens flares on here, you can kind of see that hitting, right? So same thing, we can have that actually set up. There's actually a, oops, if you hit the right button, glint is actually a thing that you could add. Okay, so the bare bones of this, not that, not this, not that, not that, not that, is that. Taking your image, exporting or extracting the ambient occlusion, multiplying it back in, pre-multiplying it, adding a vignette, and then writing it out. Oops, I forgot my background. That's why I deleted. There we go. This, that. Beautiful. Okay, now sometimes for some of these things, like this little painted thing on the side here, sometimes I'll still go into Photoshop afterwards and still tweak it, okay? But I'm tweaking minimally. I'm not going and doing a whole bunch of stuff to it. So I would still, I've exported that out. I would still open that up. This, let me see which folder I put that in. Simple prop. Nuke prop. So I would still take something like this, and I might still do a levels on it. Just because now that I see it in Photoshop, maybe I still want to adjust it some. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's going to be something very specific to that one thing all when it's done. Or I might go in here and add a layer to this and just paint some of the black here just to help kind of push more of the lighting on this side. I didn't put those on separate layers, but yeah, you get the idea. Okay? So that's one of the benefits of using Nuke, is that we can have it set up, and then at any point we can jump in there and change one node and have it update everything. Or we can use proxy stuff, so we can render a low-res one, set up all of our Nuke stuff, and then when we're ready, we render the high-res, and then just everything else will change. And just to scare you, this is what some Nuke node graphs will look like. Stuff all over the place. These circles here are 3D items, so you can actually bring in 3D items into Nuke, which is awesome. Here's more stuff. You can actually do camera tracking inside Nuke. Get bigger and bigger and bigger. And these aren't even like ILM. ILM has like enormous ones that you can't even see that there's stuff on the screen. It just looks gray. Okay? So if you wanted to try Nuke, definitely recommend it. At least download it and start playing with it. Eventually we're going to get into it. So the sooner you understand what you're doing in there, the better it's going to be for you.